I had to come to terms with the fact that writing about something was not the moral equivalent of doing it. I would not commit adultery, but I wanted to write a whole book about an affair. I know it sounds simple-minded, but I actually had to have a conversation with myself about this in the beginning, convincing myself that it was all right to depict this affair. John Allen Heckler.
You're listening to Writing Roots, brought to you by Aspen House Publishing.
Welcome to Writing Roots. I'm Lee Hull.
And I'm Lee Esses.
This episode, we are going to address the question we see a lot. It's the question of, is it okay if I write
blank?
Is it okay if I write the rape scene? Is it okay if I write this murder scene? Is it okay if I write about adultery? Yes.
Episode over. Write selfishly, go home. Bye. The answer to that question is always yes. Does it make me a terrible person if I write such and such? No. It makes you an author.
The only thing that I would say is if you were writing a children's book, you probably shouldn't be writing about murder and rape and adultery.
Yes, keeping your audience in mind.
But if you are writing for adults, if you are writing a novel with adult themes, yes, write those scenes. Make it real, because unfortunately, that's life.
I don't think I've ever read a book and gone, oh, this author must be a terrible person. I admire an author for the courage to write this terrifying scene, but I hate the villains that much more. I don't hate the author.
But what will people think of me if I write this in my story?
Hopefully they're not thinking of you at all, unless it's grandma reading it. But hopefully grandma's not your target audience.
So it's always an interesting question of writing those scenes that kind of make our skin crawl, because it portrays the reality of humanity. I work in a job where I confront a lot of bad in the world. I deal constantly with domestic violence, with bar fights and murder and child abuse and just bad things happening to good people. And if I read a book that claims to be a representation of life that doesn't have anything bad happening in it, it's boring.
Yeah, and it's definitely a book you're going to put down.
Yeah, because it's not real.
And I think, excuse me for getting a little theological here, I think a lot of modern mentality has that maybe good doesn't exist. There's an ulterior motive and they're actually evil. But everyone, as far as I know, agrees that evil exists. So to leave that out of your story, people want to choke on it. I've found for me, the most compelling stories that I've had to tell aren't going to be the ones that I publish. They're the ones with the rapes and the terrible abuse. These dark moments that are full and rich make your skin crawl because there is a good and an evil and you know who you're rooting for. I think about it. I think about killing people a lot. Not necessarily people I know, I just, death in general. That doesn't make me a terrible person. I will stand up for what's right. That makes my bad guy a terrible person and makes my readers hate my bad guy that much more.
And that's something that when you're writing a good villain in a story, if you want to portray them as a villain that your readers can hate, they have to do deplorable things. If you're not comfortable with it, you don't have to put in the details of the scene, but it will mean more to the reader if you have that in your plot. Maybe not the scene, but that thing that they did.
I just finished a scene where one of the main characters was raped, and it starts immediately after, and he's zipping up his pants. So we don't have to see that entire scene, but we get the point, and then he calls her fat, and we hate him.
Your readers have life experiences. Your readers may have run into these terrible things in their own lives, and then that allows them to connect with these characters. In Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archives, he has several main characters that have some kind of mental illness, whether it's depression, whether it's a personality disorder. A lot of the reasons they have those is because of those things that they did in their lives or that happened to them in their lives. One of the characters specifically, she grew up very innocent, very sheltered, but ended up murdering her family. and has struggled to accept that as part of her. So it becomes a connection. No, your reader probably hasn't murdered their whole family, but they have done something in their lives that they might be able to connect with those feelings that she's going through. So if you're not willing to write the dark, if you're not willing to include these things in your story will lack depth. So to sum up, is it okay if you write these scenes? Yes. Yes, it is.
Please do.
Please do. So let's get on to less heavy subjects. Is it okay if I write fan fiction?
Sure. Writers write. We said that last time. You'll see it all over the place. Writing fan fiction is one of the best ways you can build an audience.
As much as I hate this example, the best example that I can think of a fan fiction author who has made it big was E.L. James, the author of 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades of Grey started as a Twilight fan fiction. It was too dark for the site that she published it on, so she published it on her own, changed the names, and it became a separate thing. So you can write fan fiction. Another example, which I far prefer, is Neil Gaiman. He won the Hugo Award for a fan fiction that he wrote that combined Sherlock Holmes and H.P. Lovecraft. And this is Neil Gaiman we're talking about. He's written great things. So yes, you are a writer if all you do is write fan fiction.
And honestly, you're more likely to gain followers immediately by writing fan fiction than by writing something you've created yourself. Because your readers already have a connection to the Winchester brothers. So if they're reading some other story that includes them in it, they're automatically inclined to enjoy the characters. I wouldn't suggest writing 100% fan fiction because fan fiction is very difficult to publish. If you're crossing genres, it's a little easier. So you can have Star Wars fan fiction. You can have Star Trek, maybe D&D, World of Warcraft. You can have cross-medium fan fiction. But if you're writing Harry Potter fan fiction, you're going to have a lot harder time when it comes to making money with your writing.
Another question people find themselves asking a lot is it bad if I cry while I write certain scenes?
Definitely not. If you're having an emotional reaction to it, your readers will be much more likely to have an emotional reaction to it. So, yes, cry, get angry, jump for joy, be terrified for your characters. Do whatever emotional engagement with your characters and do it well.
Several very famous authors find themselves crying while they're writing. One of those is J.K. Rowling. In an interview, she said that she cried in the Order of the Phoenix because of the death of Sirius. If you are crying, if you are reacting emotionally to your story, it tells me that you're invested. It tells me that you feel for your characters. And more likely than not, that will also mean your readers will care for them as well.
Alternatively, if you're bored, guess what? Your audience is definitely going to be bored. As an entertainer, you are borrowing their kindness in allowing you to entertain them. They can stop reading at any point in time, and it's not any skin off of their teeth. So if you are bored in writing this scene and describing the elven homeland, more than likely, your audience is going to be extra bored. So whatever you feel should be what your audience is feeling also. That's a good indicator of how it will come across when it gets published.
But really, no matter what you're writing, it's okay to write whatever. It is okay to feel while you write. It is good to write what you're feeling because writing is an expression of yourself. You are bleeding words onto the paper. That's what writing is. So feel it, live it. Know that what you're writing is an expression, not reality. So it is okay to just write.
Write like it means something, and it will. And most importantly,
write selfishly.
If you have a question or comment for our hosts or a topic you'd like us to cover, send us an email at writingroots@aspenhousepublishing.com or find us on Facebook by searching for Aspen House Publishing.